Anyways, let's go ahead and get on started. What's up, y'all? It shows most does the most. Crispy. Welcome back to another video. Golden Media. See what's going on with this. The Wayans changed comedy forever. Oh, they got the same familiar name as my cousin. Villain name or a last name. But let's see what's going on with this. Make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe, follow our social media. It's gonna pop on the screen. Y'all already know we're on the road at 500. Yeah, let's see, man. We very close to getting 500. We are very close. We very close. We is 40 away. 40 subscribers away to 500. And then once we get to 500, we get to 600, and so on and so on. Till then, we here though. Let's get it.
In the late 90s to early 2000s, comedy was fun, safe, and predictable. But then the Wayans dropped one movie, and everything changed forever. They influenced an entire wave of films, and they pushed boundaries which many never dared to push. The Wayans broke what Hollywood considered good comedy at the time. They didn't just make hit comedies, they reshaped the genre, sparked an industry trend, and proved that bold, creator-driven comedies could dominate Hollywood. Not only that, they created material that is
a good movie. I need you. And now I wonder if I could fall into the sky. This is a good one too. I do want to do my hairstyle like this one time. I'm gonna do it when I go on tour. I'm gonna do it just like this. I have a lot of things in my head and stuff like this.
at the time. They didn't just make hit comedies, they reshaped the genre, sparked an industry trend, and proved that bold, creator-driven comedies could dominate Hollywood. Not only that, they created material that is still relevant 2 decades after its release. But how did just one family achieve this? Before the Wayans' big breakthrough, you have to go back to a completely different environment. The Wayans family didn't grow up around the entertainment industry. They grew up as 10 siblings living in public housing in Manhattan, New York.
Oh, wow.
There were no connections waiting for them, and no clear path into Hollywood.
Man, that look like T.I. That look like him.
There were no connections.
Hey, it is T.I. Hold on. So they all brothers? I ain't no T.I. and they all brothers? Oh, that's crazy.
Waiting for them, and no clear path into Hollywood. What they had instead was proximity to each other, to struggle, and to constant noise.
My mom had a great sense of humor. My dad had a great sense of humor when he was not stressed out, but you did.
It became a tool, a way to stand out in a room full of voices, a way to process tension and to be seen. And at the center of all this was Keenen Ivory Wayans, who would become the architect of what the family eventually built. Keenen started his career with stand-up comedy in the late 70s to early 80s, and most of his brothers would soon come to follow. This is where the first shaping of the Wayans family started. In his stand-up material, Keenen focused heavy on race, media stereotypes, and Hollywood exclusion. After a while, Keenen started gaining more and more traction, so he did what everybody does when they want to find more opportunities. He moved to Los Angeles, but he wasn't arriving as a star. He was just an observer, learning how the industry worked, where decisions were made, and more importantly, who controlled those decisions. Because very early on, Keenen realized something that would shape everything that followed. Talent gets you in the room, but control determines what happens next. Even though Keenen was the brother who was moving the needle at this time, Damon was the one who got the biggest opportunity first. In 1985, Damon made an appearance on Saturday Night Live as a feature player, appearing in multiple episodes. A role on SNL meant a big step forward in their process, but just soon after, everything came crashing down when Damon got fired. He had purposely went off script on a sketch, playing a character flamboyant rather than the writer had wrote the character.
We got 3 people that saw you kill that undercover cop.
SNL didn't like that he played by his own rules, but the rest of the comedy world liked and respected it. So even though he got fired, the Wayans' reputation grew positively in the world of comedy, but they still had progress to make. Keenen had made some very vital connections in the industry as the first big...
Wait, hold on. That might not be T.I. That might not be T.I. And I just said that T.I. Hold on, bro. Let me look that up. Do that. I doubt that. Nah, I ain't lying to you. I doubt that. I'm gonna keep it real with you. I doubt that. Damn, I was taking so long to just look it up. Oh, never mind. I thought that was Ti, bro. He did like Ti though. I ain't lying to you. He looked like him though. He looked like him a little bit.
Mover in the family. When he first came to Los Angeles, he had befriended Robert Townsend, who was on the same path as himself. This relationship would lead to the family's next big step. At this time, both the guys were broke, rejected by the industry, and trying to create opportunities instead of waiting for them. The first opportunity they created together came in 1987 with the movie Hollywood Shuffle, a comedy movie created together by Robert and Keenan. They didn't have the backing of major studios or producers, so Robert Townsend basically funded almost the entire movie by himself, with small support by Keenan. The movie was a sketch-style satire about black actors in Hollywood. The movie became like a benchmark for the first proper piece of media that was the Wayans family format.
Bobby, Donald, Tiny, it's been a long time. Yeah, 10 years? Man, we've been watching you on TV and the movies.
And this was the moment where everything changed. The movie didn't give the family them a next step. After Hollywood Shuffle, the Wayans had to look at what worked and what didn't, which is soon where their big break would get created. But before that, Keenan created yet another movie called I'm Gonna Get You, Sucka. He directed, wrote, and starred in the movie.
Wouldn't it be funny to make a parody of black exploitation movies? And he actually said, I'm gonna get you, sucker.
This movie ended up more defined and was more properly made, but there was still something that was missing. Keenan had now proved that his format worked, and he now had successfully created 2 movies. This attracted more and more opportunities, and networks would actually now want to give Keenan and his family a chance. It was obvious that Keenan was sitting on something. He just needed to properly execute it. So based on the success that he had just showed in the last few years, Keenan pitched a sketch show to Fox Networks. This is where Keenan brought his entire family to the spotlight, all together working on the show In Living Color. Premiered 1990, and the show introduced a bunch of the Wayans siblings, such as Damon, Sean, Kim, Dwayne, and Marlon. When the show debuted, it didn't just feel new, it felt disruptive. Sketch comedy at the time was still largely defined by tradition. The bigger shows like Saturday Night Live followed a rhythm audiences understood. It was setup, escalation, and punchline. In Living Color ignored that rhythm. It moved faster, layered jokes, and switched tone mid-sketch, and it targeted subjects that network television often avoided, like race, media, cultural stereotypes, not carefully, but directly. That directness made it feel dangerous in a way mainstream comedy hadn't felt in years, and it created space for performers who thrived in that environment. Jim Carrey found his break on the show as well as the Wayans, and Jim didn't just perform characters, he stretched them into something almost cartoonish, turning physical comedy into spectacle.
I knew how talented this guy was, and that's just how Jim has always approached his work. Every part that
Jim Carrey is a wonderful type of person, you know? He's funny, though, when he play characters. He just know how to do it.
Had, whether the movie worked or didn't work or whatever, he creates, you know? He creates. He doesn't walk through anything.
Jennifer Lopez was also a big part of the show. As part of the Fly Girls dance troupe, she became part of the show's identity before the world even knew her name. But behind the scenes, something else was happening. The more successful the show became, the more the network wanted to shape it to their liking. And that tension between creativity and control started to grow. For many creators, that kind of pressure leads to compromising. But for Keenan, it led to an exit, leaving the show after the 4th season. The rest of the family stayed for another season, but soon after, they canceled the show entirely. Walking away from a hit show wasn't just a business decision. It was more like a statement for the family. With a hit TV show that was now canceled, the Wayans took a step back. Following the momentum of In Living Color, Marlon and Sean created their own show called The Wayans Brothers. The show was the big introduction for Marlon and Sean, who would soon become the biggest stars from the family.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't as big of a hit as In Living Color, but it was still widely successful. This show helped turn Marlon and Sean into bankable leads, and it strengthened the family brand in the industry.
Nah, the Wayne Brothers was actually a good show to sit back and watch. Well, I ain't sit down and watch, watch it, but it was just clips of it, Because I don't know. When the Wayne Brothers came out? I know they probably came over before my time. Before my time, at least. That had to be like 2000 or something. Not even 2000. It had to be 19 something.
So this was essential for their next step. They went back to creating movies. With the previous film, I'm Gonna Get You Sucka, Keenan wasn't just making fun of blaxploitation films, he was dissecting them. He was asking, what makes this genre recognizable? Is it the dialogue, the music, or the character archetypes? And once you isolate those pieces, what happens if you exaggerate them? That process became more refined with Don't Be a Menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood. By this point, the approach had evolved. They started focusing on creating a parody. There had been a few notable parody movies before, like The Naked Gun, Spaceballs, and Airplane. This is where Sean and Marlon Wayans found their format of parody movies. The few parodies that came before had done well. Most were both funny and successful at the time. So what could go wrong? They continued their ongoing theme of focusing on sensitive subjects, like the family had done before. Sean and Marlon decided to parody hood movies, like Boys in the Hood, Juice, Menace to Society, and many more, hence the title. Films like Boys in the Hood and Juice carried emotional weight, but they also had structure, recurring beats, familiar character arcs, and visual language that audiences had learned to interpret. This genre of movies had become predictable, which is where the brothers sensed they could create something with the movie. But everything didn't go as planned. They had created 26 different drafts of the movie, which just proved how hard it was for Marlon and Sean to create a movie for the first time, since Keenan wasn't as involved in this project this time. Just 1 week before the shooting of the film, they realized they didn't have much material to work with. All the 26 different drafts wasn't particularly good. So in just
Don't Be a Menace to Society is actually a good movie.
1 week, Sean and Marlon wrote almost the entirety of the movie, which is how Don't Be a Menace got created.
All these different sketches that getting jumped in, that became the movie of Don't Be a Menace. And hadn't we did the 26 drafts prior to that, we could have never showed up to put together that draft in 7 days and do what Don't Be a Menace.
Right.
At the time, these type of films didn't dominate the box office, but they didn't need to. Because what the Wayans were really building wasn't popularity, it was precision. They were learning exactly where the line was between genre and formula. Don't Be a Menace didn't exactly change the genre of comedy movies, but it gave them the idea and experience to actually do so. By the late 1990s, Hollywood had unknowingly done half the work for them already. The horror genre had come back strong. Scream reintroduced audiences to slasher films with a self-aware twist, while I Know What You Did Last Summer followed with its own commercial success. But success came with repetition.
And that's where he made Scary Movie 1. All the Scary Movie franchises actually a good one.
Repetition created familiarity. Audiences saw all these horror movies in the 90s and started to anticipate exactly what would happen next. And not because they had seen the movie before, but because they had seen the structure before. The phone call, the chase, the reveal. And once you can predict this structure, you're no longer fully inside the story. You're just observing it. And that's the exact moment parody becomes possible. The Wayans had now spent over a decade preparing for that moment, studying genres, identifying patterns, and understanding pacing. Now, they finally got the perfect movie to make. The movie idea actually came first from outside writers, Aaron Seltzer and Jason Friedberg. Marlon and Sean got brought in to rewrite and star in the movie, with Keenan directing it, changing the movie entirely from what the original writers had started with. They created a parody of all the predictable horror movies, taking everything that worked in Don't Be a Menace and putting it into this new film, which is where Scary Movie got created.
Yep.
When Scary Movie arrived, it didn't feel like a culmination. It felt like an explosion. The film opens by recreating Scream almost exactly, but within seconds, the tension is broken, twisted, and turned into something ridiculous. That pattern repeats throughout the movie. Build tension and interrupt it. Replace it with absurdity. But what made it different wasn't just the jokes. It was the density. Most comedies at the time gave audiences space to recover between punchlines. Scary Movie didn't. It moved forward relentlessly, stacking jokes on top of each other, forcing the audience to stay engaged or fall behind, just like the Wayans had been doing it for years now. That pacing created a new kind of viewing experience, one where missing a joke wasn't a flaw, it was rather expected, because another one was already coming. Behind the scenes, that energy wasn't entirely controlled. The film was produced quickly, with constant rewrites and improvisation. Actors were encouraged to push scenes further, to test how far they could go before something stopped being funny, and sometimes, that line moved. That unpredictability became part of the film's identity, because what Scary Movie created wasn't just a successful parody, it was a new rhythm for comedy. Scary Movie blew up like nothing the Wayans could ever have imagined. With a budget of just around $19 million and making over $275 million worldwide from the box office. To call it a hit would almost be an understatement. The formula seemed simple: low cost, high return, culturally relevant references, and most importantly, speed. The sequel, Scary Movie 2, proved the success wasn't just a one-time event. The Wayans applied what worked in the first movie.
I think, which one was when they did that Michael Jackson reference? I think it was number 2.
And succeeded once again. It wasn't like the first movie, but still a successful hit. But it was in the production of Scary Movie 2 where the brothers started seeing the downfall. The sequel got extremely rushed after the big success of the first film. The studio wanted to take advantage of the momentum from the first film. They got compressed writing time, a tight shooting schedule, which resulted in less development compared to the first film. All this resulted in a weaker film than the first. The Wayans have said that all this was a creative limitation that ruined their process, and there was nothing they could do about it. But either way, they produced yet another hit with a rushed movie.
The week enough, because they seen the track and they know it was going to be huge. So we got a good deal in the second one. You know, we got 20 against 20 deal, and then
came films like Not Another Teen Movie, which was not created or affiliated with the Wayans, but it was also another smaller hit parody film, which imitated what the Wayans did. They just applied the same approach to a different genre. For a brief moment, parody became the dominant form of comedy. But underneath that success, something subtle was changing, because what looked like a formula wasn't actually a formula, it was a process, and most studios didn't understand the difference. Eventually, all this success had a bad turning point. After Scary Movie 2, the Wayans stepped away from the franchise due to creative conflicts with producer Harvey Weinstein, and the studio made it clear that their control was slipping. And without the control, the system they built couldn't function the same way. It was the In Living Color situation all over again.
That was a franchise and then they stole the idea for the third one.
Right.
We as gentlemen, we walked away from the third one because it was like, well, first of all, they took it from us.
Even though creatively, the Wayans controlled almost everything, they were the writers, directors, and acted in the roles. But unfortunately, they didn't have ownership-level control. That is where the clash with Harvey Weinstein came in play. Keenan pitched the idea for a Scary Movie 3 and wanted another deal with Weinstein's Miramax, but the Wayans didn't think the deal they were offered was good enough, so they asked for more, but Miramax declined. The Wayans were stuck negotiating, trying to get a solid offer for their movie, until they eventually were fired.
You can't just put anybody on they're gonna just do it. You can't do what we do. Right. You can do a version. And so they did the third one, took the idea, we pitched them.
So the franchise still continued because Weinstein saw the numbers the Scary Movie franchise was doing and wanted to milk every single angle that he possibly could. And that's where the shift becomes visible. Because the later films still followed the structure, but something felt different. That difference was the Wayans. They wasn't a part of it.
But this don't taste like Wayans.
Scary Movie 3 and 4 were proof of how much the Wayans had done in not just the franchise, but the genre. The understanding of what made the jokes work began to fade, and what had once been carefully constructed started to feel assembled. Weinstein wasn't the only producer who saw the numbers the Scary Movie franchise were doing. Every producer in comedy saw the potential these types of films had, and they thought all they had to do was put in a low effort and a low budget into making the movie, and the money would flow in naturally. But without the ingredients that the Wayans put into these films, parody movies wasn't guaranteed to work. As more parody films were released, the decline became impossible to ignore. Most parody films were rushed and made not focusing on having actual good comedy ingrained in the movies. The pacing remained fast, but without purpose.
See? there y'all go, trying to copy everybody and want to do with us. Well, when somebody original do it. See, trying to get in the formula, but your formula don't taste how the original taste. Tastes kind of bland. Mwah. I need to go ahead and get the regular chef because this new chef, he disgusting, trash, nasty.
And the references remained, but without the same
Oh, wow,
context.
they made another one.
It was an easy concept to adapt, because all they needed to do was copy the movie they parodied and make fun of it. But it wasn't that simple. The jokes didn't build up to comedy, they just pointed to it. The more parody movies they released, the more they felt flat and looked like quick money grabs. Films like Date Movie, Epic Movie, and others pushed the formula to its limit, stripping away the underlying structure that had made the original films effective. And audiences responded, at first with curiosity, then with hesitation, and eventually with disinterest. The genre got oversaturated quickly with cheap copies. What once felt unpredictable now felt repetitive, and the genre that had risen so quickly collapsed just as fast. At first, most parodies did see financial success, but as the movies got oversaturated, the profits quickly started declining more and more. From the outside, it looked like the Wayans had lost something, but in reality, they had stepped away from something they no longer controlled. They still had their comedic skill and desire to create movies, which is where yet another hit gets created. In 2004, the Wayans created White Chicks. Once again starring Marlon and Sean, with Keenan as the director. White Chicks was a display of the Wayans' specific and unique comedic skill. Although this time, they stayed away from creating a full-on parody movie, as they now saw how saturated the space was getting, and focused more on making a satirical movie. But this time, they learned from their mistakes, and made sure they had control and got offered a good deal. At the time, the movie became a very big hit. Not as huge as Scary Movie or other comedies released in this era, but the movie grew into a huge cultural phenomenon over time. The reason as to why it became better with time was due to how it first was received when it first came out. The movie was weird and almost too exaggerated. The movie mostly received bad reviews at first, but it still became a cult classic because there was no denying in how iconic the movie actually was. But the brothers still focused on what they had become famous for in the first place. But instead of focusing on black people, this time they focused on wealth culture, beauty standards, and social privilege.
They had a screening over at Saks Fifth Avenue.
And that's why it's good.
Security office. A kleptomaniac.
Critics thought it was controversial, as they went too much into race and cultural stereotypes, but the general audience thought it was a funny satire of privilege and social performance. This was also the movie where Terry Crews delivered one of his biggest and most iconic roles of all time, and stole the entire movie in just one scene.
How did you know? I love this song!
White Chicks is filled with iconic moments like this, which is also why the rewatch value of the movie is so high, and still relevant to this day. White Chicks wasn't just another comedy. It was proof they could still create something unforgettable on their own terms, even if critics didn't get it. The Wayans had cemented their style in comedy and made a huge impact in the industry. But after White Chicks, the family didn't make that much noise as they had. Marlon was the only one who really stayed relevant in Hollywood, with stand-up specials and frequent roles in more serious movies. Damon as well stayed frequent acting in smaller projects. Sean took a step back and started focusing more on family, while Keenan continued working on a
You'd be like that. But hope y'all enjoyed this video. Make sure to comment, subscribe, follow our social media, pop up on the screen. There's Golden Media. And I'm out.